Live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler, live in the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. As always, thank you for joining us. We are here every weekday. We cover a wide range of topics, whether that's breaking news, maybe that's sometimes events or longer form conversations. We also cover things that are happening when it comes to climate. And that's what we're discussing right now. We've got talking about El Niño. We've got the Oregon State Climatologist Larry O'Neill joining us. Professor, thank you very much for being here. Always appreciate having you here on the show to go through some of these things. And El Niño right now, talking about what kind of impact this has on the Pacific Northwest, what we've seen so far, what we can expect. I think before we even get to that, would you mind giving us that quick overview and definition of what El Niño actually is, and then we can talk about what this one in particular is doing.
Yeah, so at this very basic level, El Niño is a warming of the ocean along the equator in the Pacific, along the Pacific Ocean. And that warming can span all the way from South America and Central America all the way across the equator. And that warming can really dictate our fall and winter weathers. So what happens is when you get so much warming of the ocean, it actually affects our weather patterns up here in the Pacific Northwest. And so it moves the jet stream, or the what kind of dictates where our storms go, where our rainfall goes, where we have warm and cold temperatures. And so that's right now why we're so interested in how this El Niño is developing.
And so this is developing currently, right now, I would assume, this El Niño?
Yes, actually, it is already formed, and it is rapidly strengthening. One of the really interesting things about this event is it has warmed very quickly, and so it's warmer now than in any previous El Niño event that we've seen. And the forecasts now are that the warming ocean temperatures will become the warmest that we've ever seen along the equatorial Pacific. So what that means is that this El Niño could be it could be the strongest that we've ever observed in our instrument data record.
So when you have an El Niño that's going to be this strong, or showing to be this strong, what are the effects that can have on the Pacific Northwest for the winter?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And so there's a rule of thumb for the Pacific Northwest and for Oregon that during an El Niño, it's warm and dry, essentially, during the winter. And so we do expect that this El Niño event will be quite a bit warmer for the Pacific Northwest and for Oregon. The wild card here is what happens to our precipitation. So we've had a couple of these what we call very strong El Niños, and so these are the strongest that we've had. And although this one's predicted to be much stronger than those, during those past events, there was one in 1982, 83, and then another one in 97, 98. During those two events, we actually were wetter than normal and snowier than normal up in the mountains. And so that's kind of what we can, just based on like two occurrences in the data record. For this El Niño, we definitely expect that it will be warmer, much warmer in the Pacific Northwest. We'll probably also, again, experience one of our warmest winters on record, like we did last winter. But also, we might actually, instead of being a dry El Niño, this might actually be something that's either average precipitation or wetter than normal. And but the other thing that we can think about, too, is what the snowpack would be like. And so last winter, we had our worst snowpack in our state's recorded history, in large part because it was so warm, because of such a warm winter. And this winter, it's not looking great for a really good snowpack. It's not out of the cards that we could have a good snowpack, but right now it's not looking good for it.
So with that, combined on top of just what a really bad winter this was last year when it comes to the snow drought that we're experiencing, that could have some really serious ramifications, I would imagine, on the Pacific Northwest.
Absolutely. And so I'll just emphasize that, the El Niño is just one factor that determines our seasonal weather patterns. And so but it just does tilt the odds towards a particular outcome. And so with this very strong El Niño event, the particular outcome could be warm and wet. But as you said, we are in a really severe drought right now. So something like 90 or 91% of Oregon is in some stage of drought currently, due in part to the really bad snowpack we had last winter. So this winter, we're absolutely depending on above average precipitation to refill our reservoirs, to improve our groundwater, just basically put more moisture on the landscape. And so, this distinction about whether this could be a dry or wet El Nino is going to be really important for us, and how we respond to drought, whether we go into drought recovery this winter or whether we go into worsening drought conditions. And right now, a lot of our reservoirs are starting to empty, and most of the reservoirs in Oregon will be near empty by the time we get to fall. So we will really need a lot of moisture from this to kind of help recover that. If we don't get it, the drought next year could be even more severe than it is this year.
What are the factors that you're waiting to find out, to determine whether this is going to be a wetter winter or drier, and when would we start to see that actually take shape?
Yeah, so right now it actually, if we dig into things a little bit more, it actually depends where that warm water forms along the Pacific. So if it's more towards the coast, towards Central and South America and North America, that has actually been associated more with wet outcomes. So that was what the 1982 and 1997 El Ninos were. Those were wet El Ninos for Oregon and Pacific Northwest, and those were associated with the warm water being there. If that warm water actually goes more into the middle of the Pacific, around the date line, kind of south of Hawaii, those have actually been more drier El Ninos there. So right now we're seeing how that pattern sets up. We should know a lot more by October or November which pattern sets up, and we'll probably start to see some impacts to our weather around that time as well.
Okay, so a couple more months then before we'll really start to see this take shape. Now, when it comes to getting that data, do we have enough? I know there was some concern too with some of the arrays of sensors that have been taken offline off the coast. So the lack of those currently, because I believe they're still offline,
Right.
how is that going to affect our ability to accurately predict and look at and forecast how this El Nino is going to take shape?
Yeah, so those the sensor array that you referred to is part of what's called the Ocean Observers Initiative, and there's an array of ocean sensors off Oregon and Washington called the Endurance Array, and that was actually pulled out of the water due to a budget cut, and the budget cut has since been rescinded, and that array is starting to go back in the water. However, most of it will not be in the water to cover this event, unfortunately. And what we lose from that is knowledge of ocean conditions off our coast, and that'll affect our fisheries, it'll affect our weather forecasts, and it'll affect our search and rescue. If we have a really stormy winter, that'll affect our search and rescue capabilities off the coast. And El Ninos tend to have a really big impact on our fisheries. So in our crab fisheries and our salmon fisheries and things like that. So so we'll lose that ability for this winter to really be able to monitor that and adjust to it.
What do you think is the most important thing the general public should know about El Nino and just the way that it's shaping up currently?
Yeah, so no. To my mind, since this is going to be such a strong El Nino event, we've never seen it this strong before. So scientifically, it's actually quite interesting to see what the impacts will be, if they're going to be like impacts that we've experienced before. But one thing is for certain is that there's a lot of uncertainty in what we can expect this winter. So it could be dry, it could be wet, and it could be really stormy. Some of our biggest flood events occur during the very strong El Ninos. So the biggest takeaway here is that we have like a very wide range of conditions that we could experience, and so it's best to be prepared for anything that we could get.
Okay, yeah. So it could go either way on that, but it sounds like whichever way it goes, it will probably be a lot. Whether that's the dry side or if we get more precipitation, is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right. We're pretty highly confident that it'll be warmer than normal, and so like I said before, the impacts in the snowpack might be much more acute than it otherwise would be with a weaker El Nino. But and so if you're thinking about getting a lift ticket this year, it's uncertain.
Yeah, uncertain of what to expect. I hope they get a lot of snow, but we'll have to see. Have to wait and see. All right. Well, Larry, thank you, very much for joining us and to talk about this. I always appreciate this information. It's important for all of us to just realize this is happening. Something's happening. One way or another, it's shaping up to be a strong El Nino. It's just where it actually fully develops, it sounds like, is the important thing, whether it's toward the coast or toward Hawaii. And yeah, so follow along with the data over the next couple of months, I suppose, and then we'll know.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you very much for being here with us on Fox 12 Now.
Thank you.
And for everybody watching, again, we are live here out of the newsroom. We're going to continue on. We've got a lot of coverage. We're going to check back in and talk some more about the Centennial Mills building in downtown Portland. The demolition has begun on that. So we've got more on that coming up. We're also going to be talking about a number of different things. If breaking news happens, we'll have that for you as well. Going all the way until our 4 p.m. news, I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.